Preparing for the next generation of artists for the future of creative arts is our topic today, and we have some great panelists for you. I'm going to start to my left here, have them introduce themselves, and then after they're finished, I'll say a few questions and we can get going here. So, Annie.
Good afternoon. Let's see how I do this. A little closer. Okay, good afternoon. I'm Anne Younglove, past chairman of the board of VitalLink OC, which is a career exploration nonprofit organization, and program analyst for the Newport Mesa Unified School District, which in short means I write all the CTE grants for our school district.
Hi everybody, my name is Simone Price. I'm on the Social Impact and Sustainability team at Dolby Laboratories. We make, contrary to current and past belief, we don't really make speakers, but we make a lot of amazing audio technology and multimedia production technology, and I'm sure many of you have used some of our technologies maybe without even knowing it. I lead our partnerships in youth and young adult STEAM education, and I'm part of our HR team.
My name is Nicole. I'm Nicole Hendrix. I'm the executive director of the Brick Foundation. We focus on getting women and people from underrepresented groups into the entertainment, media, and tech industries. We also registered the first ever youth apprenticeship program for animation, visual effects, and gaming, which will be opening up end of October. We have a lot of amazing employer partners, so hopefully this will be a new model. I'm also co-founder of the Concept Art Association. So we have the Concept Art Awards tonight at 6:30 p.m. in the Civic Auditorium. Please come say hi.
Group of human beings. My name is Carson Smith. I would first, actually, you guys can just probably hear me, right? Yeah, I'm not quiet. Never been accused of being quiet. First off, I want to thank our friends at Wacom for bringing that Seattle weather down here. That was awesome of them.
Northwest weather.
Yeah, it's like, 78 and sunny. It's just so dreadful. Why would we want to do that? No, so first off, thanks also for putting this on. And since we're talking about education, how many people in this room are educators?
Wow.
Right. So let's take a moment to give them a round of applause for the
Yeah.
last 3 years.
That's awesome.
Because what you guys have done in the last 3 years has been pretty remarkable. So thank you for babysitting everyone's children during this unprecedented time. So my name is Carson Smith. Alongside Darian Gonzalez-Kessler, who's in the back there. Hello, Darian. Nice to see you. We run NIT Community Efforts, which is primarily an arts education advocacy program for a major studio. We believe that the first step to success is access. So granting people in spaces that typically wouldn't get access into a studio is our first goal. Our second goal then is to create that career pathway from that spot. And so we run a multitude of programs. We have something called Let's Draw, which is where we do something as really complicated as draw with children. We do that at least once a week. We also do that in Spanish. We have a program called Vamos a Dibujar, where we draw with children across Latin America. We also have a pretty robust group of mentorships with 3 high schools, one in South LA, one in Burbank, and one in Canada, where we focus on shorts and series development. Clark from our development team is back here. She's one of our mentors on our series team where we teach kids how to create their own TV shows. So round to Clark and Peter from our social team who are here. And we do some CG stuff as well. And then we also have a program called The Best Field Trip Ever, which is where pre-pandemic you got to spend a half day at the studio. And now is done virtually. And hopefully, if the cartoon gods let us, in 2023, we will have people back in the studio and see the faces and the joys of children, the screaming joy of children. So
We're all looking forward to that.
Cheers. Nice to meet you all. Thank you.
And I didn't introduce myself. My name is Nathan Brown, and I work for Wacom Technologies. And yes, we did bring the weather here. I was a little bit upset that it was so sunny, so sorry about that, Carson. My first question for the panelists, and let's go ahead and start with Annie next to me here, is how have we seen education change, and what has the role of industry partners played in the growth of the industries and in education?
So I can speak about my own experience. I've been in this business for quite a while, the education business. And I would say pre-COVID in Orange County, we're known as a design center. And one of the things we realized when trying to fulfill the needs of industry was to get industry actually into our schools, into our classrooms, and on advisories. So engineering was growing very rapidly pre-COVID, and so we figured in about 2013-14 we'd start an engineering pathway. We began it in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade in 2 high schools, and that was just about the same time the CTIG grants were coming out, so we got pretty heavily funded. And we had advisory right by our side the entire time with our curriculum, with the equipment we purchased, and we started with 60 students, and we right now have 950. And that's from 7th through 12th in engineering. And the same growth prospectus is what we're working on our other pathways. We have patient care, engineering, construction, digital media arts, production and managerial arts, stage technology, music technology, I know I'm missing something, culinary arts, and all of those are industry driven. So our point is to try to get our students prepared to get them into entry-level jobs in industry while they're going to their following years of college during whether it's community college or four-year university. So we're portfolio driven.
I mean, that definitely says a lot about the education side. I will say my background is largely in nonprofit and community development. And coming to Dolby and now being here for 8 years and growing to lead our youth education initiatives, and then also having come from a family of educators, I will say that education has always required all of you to do so much with quite a little. And I think it's really important for us to acknowledge that, and that it's not necessarily equal across all districts. So I think when we look at how do we make the most impact as an industry partner, we really try to intentionally design with all of that in mind. So we make partnerships in community at a super local level. Those are usually based around where our offices are located, but also, and I think the pandemic, while horrendous, also helped us access a lot more teachers, specifically on the arts, media, and entertainment curriculum side. And so we were able to actually scale our reach through the pandemic and through unifying virtually, which I think it was really impressive to see all of the educators come to us industry partners, be all on one Zoom call and say, this is exactly what I need. And so we as industry partners really sat down and listened and said, okay, we need to make sure that these resources are not only accessible virtually, but they're designed with your feedback in mind. And so what we've been able to do, while our technologies have historically, so our technologies that support music studios, film studios, the developer space, audio technology, and as well as audio technology in autos. Like we're kind of everywhere where any audio is. We had to make sure that as we're designing educational resources for those professionals, how do we make those resources now accessible to you as teachers of that next generation? And so we're making many more virtual resources available for you to integrate into your curricula. And I think to Annie's point is we need to work hand in hand, and we need to make sure that as industry partners, we continue to listen. We continue to hear what your needs are. We continue to work at that hyper-local level and really integrate our volunteers in either coming to the classroom or being virtual speakers, simulating that field trip experience one way or another, while also working at a model of scale. How can we reach more teachers outside of where our offices are located? Because we know that talent is everywhere. So taking that all into consideration, I think, you know, the past few years have really, I think, like taken off the blinders for a lot of people inside our company to hear what a lot of us in the education space have been saying, is that we need to design more intentionally and with access in mind. And so really I think that is the role of industry partners in this work.
Absolutely. I had no intention of ever being in education or working with children. So I came at this sideways from a diversity and inclusion perspective. I was about a decade into my career before I worked with another female as an equal. And it's just very much, our BRIC was focusing on how do we get more people into the industry that come from different backgrounds. And so as we kept year after year trying to problem solve for this, it starts in high school. It really starts at age 6, to be honest with you. So that's why BRIC got into this work, was to try to help improve the pathways into the industry. And COVID, obviously horrible, but I got to talk to these two almost
Yeah.
every week.
Yeah.
The Department of Ed pulled together an industry task force to really try to solve, okay, these kids have Chromebooks. None of the software works on Chromebooks. How do we fix this? So it's like Adobe was there. Oh, and Wacom, y'all made a product that worked on Chromebooks. So it's like, I think it's just really, it was a unique time in history where everybody got together to try to help, and it was really beautiful, and I'm glad that I got to know all of you through that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. So everything I do is forward facing, right? Like everything I do is with people. Like I have no discernible skills outside of organizing and putting people together, thinking like this person should talk to that person to get towards this end. So that's what I do. And so when COVID hit and they shut us down, I was pretty terrified. I didn't really know how I was going to do my job. Plus, I'm kind of a Luddite. You can ask Darian back there. She will confirm that. See? I keep IT so busy. It's like, another ticket? Yeah. You broke Slack? Yeah, I broke Slack. It's common. But I was sitting there while I was walking Griffith Park one day thinking, like, what am I going to do? We're a month into this. And we had a best field trip planned with a school in South LA. And I just called them up and said, hey, do you think we can do this virtually? And they said, yeah, I think we can figure that out. So instead of getting 55 kids into the studio on a bus, we got 125 kids onto a Zoom call. We got an artist to jump on using Blender, and he showed the kids how they could model Patrick. And that sort of launched it for us. And, you know, really a lot of it for us, there's a great TED Talk by David Eggers, who founded 826, if you guys are familiar with him, about how he went about starting and building his nonprofit. And the idea is, I don't teach 8th grade in the Bay. I'm not that brave. Why don't I talk to teachers? So our approach has always been, why don't we talk to teachers to find out what they need? Because I don't inhabit that space. Like, I pop into a school for an hour, I teach you how to draw SpongeBob, but then I go back to my cushy office with a cereal bar and all this fancy stuff, and you guys are stuck there every day working with kids. So for us, that's just how it started, and then we just started building from there, and none of it was planned. It was all kismet. It was all happenstance, but, you know, we sat down on calls this week with mentorship programs with kids in South Central, kids in Canada, kids in LA, all on different days, and heard them pitch stories, story ideas, story arcs, and that's the power of all of this. So, you know, I think that is the thing. I mean, it'd be interesting to hear from the teachers afterwards how it's affected them, because they're the ones who were there 24/7.
Especially, yes, and we do have a good Q&A session in here near the end. But I kind of want to follow up. One of the themes that we've had here is a lot of this was accelerated by the pandemic. And now that that's kind of teetering off a bit now, as we all wear masks here, where do you see it going now? Are you seeing, are things going to go back to what it was, or do you feel there's going to be a hybrid? You want to go ahead and just grab that question real quick?
I'll take it from a school site. It's completely shaken our educational system up, which is fantastic. It stopped the lecture. It stopped the teachers standing up doing the same lesson plan they've done for 45 years. It's made people be aware of how quickly students can learn information, how quickly they can access it. And so I think it was a blessing. I think it's a really big blessing. And in the arts, it was very difficult for us, no doubt. Our school districts were not prepared with Chromebooks. It showed their weakness. Their IT departments were overwhelmed. It showed their weakness. Weakness is your greatest asset. And so I think that in our area, it has created a tremendous awareness to career technical education, because career technical education is where all that activity was taking place. And it wasn't seeping into physics, and it wasn't seeping into the math classes, and it wasn't seeping anywhere else. And all of a sudden, it was all in one big bundle, and everybody was right there at the table saying, holy smokes. So I think, I look at it like the Industrial Revolution, I really do. They've talked about the IT revolution and all that. Nothing has ever made such a momentous effect on technology than what happened with COVID. And I think you're going to see things there's so many things happening all the time, and students are on it. And for our purposes, we're trying to get those students out to you all in industry, because these kids see that they can learn as much or faster than anybody could deliver it in a classroom. And that's throwing education into a tailspin. And I think it's spectacular. So for me, yeah. And COVID.
I have a little chime in, but we can.
And so I do think that, so one thing that we did at the BRIC Summit during COVID, which is one of the events that I run, is we got a bunch of industry professionals in a room together with a bunch of educators, and Allison Frenzel, who's our Department of Ed partner and with us in spirit always. But she basically were like, hey, nobody from industry has ever advised on what kids are taught in public schools. So schools are just churning out all of these people that can't get into art schools because they haven't been taught proper things for their portfolios or what have you, right? So there's just a massive disconnect between what industry wants to hire and what kids are able to receive in their free and public education. So everybody got together. Carson's there. Carson's worked with us for the past 2 years on these standards. And Simone and her pathway, because mine is animation, visual effects, and gaming. Simone's obviously music. And so we rewrote the state standards together. And it's actually, kids in public school will be taught by what hundreds and hundreds of industry professionals has decided that that's what they want to hire. It shouldn't be groundbreaking. It sounds very odd to say it out loud. It should be just how it is. Industry should be helping weigh in on education because they're going to hire, it's all about jobs, right? And so you shouldn't have to go to a fancy art school to be able to get a job at a studio. You should be able to, in a free education, be able to have a portfolio skills that you need. And so that's what COVID really made possible, because quote unquote fancy people that might not have driven across to talk to South LA teachers or what have you, or whatever, wherever you are in the world or the state, were able to all be on the same call, all be able to, okay, I'm not teaching 3D. When I'm not teaching 3D in my classroom, I'm not just blocking kids off to animation careers, I'm blocking them off to about 12 different career families. Yeah. And so those conversations had never really been had before. And so that was, I think, just a really cool thing out of a horrible situation.
Yeah. I would say, I mentioned that I'm on the HR team because the way that we look at this is we are planting really early seeds when it comes to trying to solve for the diversity, equity, and inclusion problems that we're seeing at our tech companies. In all honesty, I think the average is like the 20 to 25% of, tech companies is a big term, but when we only have 25% of our employee base as diverse or gender diverse, neurodiverse, all the diversities, racially diverse, we are not creating products for the world. Yep. We're not creating products that are taking accessibility into consideration, the differences of our body, the differences in which we are physically designed. We need to make sure that when we're doing our research, that we have a diverse research base. When we have interns come in, that we really want to hear what the next generation of innovators are, how you're using our technologies so that we can make them better and make them more applicable to a greater creator base. And so by working with this collective of folks, and I will say, when we're rolling out new curricular standards, there is a really heavy focus on Title I schools as well.
Yes.
Because that we know that collectively the system has failed. It's existing, but we know that we need to do better and we need to really understand the diversity and equity inclusion problems from the beginning. So we're planting seeds, and I think as industry partners, what we see this work as is absolutely the long game. And then we're also working internally to make sure that our employees are getting these experiences to hear from diverse next generation creatives. And that's where I think having that student as well as the teacher interfacing, and a lot of that was able to happen at mass scale in the pandemic, which was really amazing. Break down those physical barriers to going to certain locations and really start to get people to think about the fact that talent is everywhere. And we can really hire some amazing talent from across the world, but also in our backyard, even if it's 15 miles away. And I know 15 miles away in LA is a vast difference, but that is really what we need to start to do better with. And then make sure that when we're offering jobs and we're offering internships, that those are hybrid. And how can we make these accessible for the next generation of diverse creatives? And how can we make our workplace more accessible and more supportive in that journey as you come in and then you get onboarded as a full-time employee? So we're really looking at this from a big scale, but it really does start with these early investments and applying our resources and technology in the most applicable, appropriate space where they're going to have the most impact.
And 100% agree. And the reason that's important is because research shows that the more representation there is behind the screens, the more representation occurs on the screens. And that means that kids all over the world can see themselves depicted as astronauts or what have you, right? So we're talking about culture change. And so if you are excluding culture being like people getting into these careers that help impact culture, it's like there's a huge ripple effect. And so that's why we really care so deeply about this work.
I think what you guys are saying is like three things. Is first of all, we don't need to find inclusion and diverse candidates. We need to build them, right? So that's step one, right? It's like getting into those classrooms, and it just literally takes something as simple as a kid seeing somebody who looks like them at a studio
Yes.
to flip that light switch, right? Like, I mean, that's kind of what Danny and I say is like every time we meet with a group of kids, whether it's in person or it's on the screen or wherever, it's like if you flip one kid, if one kid comes out of that experience going, all right, this is possible, check that, feasible, then again, I'm in a spot. So I think that's important. But I think also too, like the thing about your audience and storytelling and finding those voices, because the thing, even when you talk about, like, you look at mainstream media and you talk about the debates that people are having, and then you ask a kid about it, they're like, yeah, whatever, man. Like, I don't care about that. Like, seriously, like, really? Like, we really don't care. No one under the age of 35 cares about that. Like, I don't want you to talk about it. So it's getting down to that level, talking to kids, figuring out what's important to them. But also, too, I think the larger question about how we interact, the cat's out of the bag. Like, at the beginning of the pandemic, we had one mentorship program with one high school. Now we have 3 mentorship programs with 3 high schools, so that's 9.
Yeah.
And then we have another one that we're working with somebody else. And those are kids all over. And then when we think about inclusion, too, this summer, Darren and I did a animation boot camp in Nebraska, which is also, you know, an animation desert.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest things was Darian set up this class with the guys from Cinema Secrets who do all the SpongeBob.
Mm-hmm.
The best hour and a half in anyone's life, right? But it was just watching all these kids go like, oh, like, I have these things at home that I can record this on, and I can make that. You know, and so it's something as simple as just getting into those spaces. So I don't think we're going to go back to, you know, we will visit classrooms. We will have kids into the studio, but we will be doing a lot more things with a lot more spaces in the visual world because it's just a wider reach and it's just easier. Now, there is the question of the digital divide, and that's a really, really serious question that we as a society have to address and ask ourselves. You know, like, I mean, we have kids who are parking up in front of Taco Bell so they can hop on the calls.
Right.
So that's something that we,
That's one
and I leave that to people much smarter than myself to figure out. But I think that aside, I mean, we had an animation boot camp in Senegal. And the crazy thing is the kids in Senegal are no different than the kids in LA and the kids in Mexico and the kids in Canada we work with. They all like the same stuff. There's all the same arguments. There's all the same anime arguments. You just throw out a topic and the same archetypes are going at one another talking, no, you're not, no, you don't, you know. And so that's what's kind of the wonderful thing about all of this, right? Like, look, COVID sucks. I mean, but we did get to sort of do these things that weeks earlier we thought were impossible.
Totally.
I mean, we were just like, and then it's like, oh, all I got to do is use this product and okay.
Changed everything.
Yeah, so I think that's the takeaway. Now, how we devise that going forward and how classrooms work, I leave that to the educators and people in those spaces, but I do think we are now able to reach a lot more people.
Well, you're an educator, so I'll put you on the spot there.
The token educator. Okay, go.
Can you answer Carson's question there? Like, what do you feel and what do you see of how this is going to move forward and how partnering with the industries, how can that become easier? This is something that it looks like it took a pandemic to us to really like say, hey, this isn't working right. What can we do to make this work better? So how can we keep this momentum as from the educator's point of view?
I think the word technology is with the reason that a lot of the school districts are panicked and a lot of the school districts are at ease. Some that have funds are feeling like, well, we have technology, but where's the technology housed? It's housed in career technical education. And what is career technical education becoming? A portfolio-driven design area of creativity and academics mixed together. And so how does a lecture series set up in the 1680s in America, built around an agrarian society, become a technologically advanced society? It happens because career is what our students are after. So the school districts don't have a choice. Prior to this, they made a cog. It came to them for free in kindergarten. It stayed with them for 12 years for free. They had no responsibility of what happened to it after it left. There's no product liability on a graduated senior. You can't come back as a senior and say, you gypped me. It doesn't work. A free education doesn't go that way. In career technical education, that's the change of what COVID has done is COVID has driven those programs in schools and those schools that don't have those programs because they're certifications. There are opportunities for concurrent or dual enrollment or early college credit. The other classes don't have those options. Those portfolios are getting kids into all different types of schools, into engineering schools, into pre-med type of biological study schools, because what the kids are doing. This standardized class of physics, building a paper, cardboard canoe to float across a swimming pool with duct tape, is no longer accessible or acceptable by CTE students. They don't want to build a trebuchet. They want to be able to make a drone work. They want to operate a robot. They want to be able to do things. And the school districts are like, wow, but CTE, because the state has poured so much money, billions, big B, not M's, B, billions of dollars into K-12 and actually K-16 for these grants. So those of you that are in here that are educators, if you want one thing to walk away from, you get into a grant writing class or find out who's writing the grants in your classes, because they're throwing the money away. It's there for you to use. It doesn't matter whether you're low socioeconomic or high socioeconomic. I'm a grant reader as well as a grant writer. You need to get out there and find out what your industry needs in that field. You're looking at your digital media arts here. A lot of you, your production, animation, digital media arts. Where are the jobs in your local area? Get advisors together. Sit them down in a room with those digital media arts teachers and an English teacher. Get an English teacher in there. Get an art teacher in there with you and start having that dialogue. What Allison's done, and Nicole, they've changed the paradigm. Those teachers don't even know it yet. They're not going to know it until after November when the state votes on it. But once that new curriculum comes out, all of a sudden, they're going to need all those people at the table to make this happen. So I say it doesn't matter how much, it doesn't matter the socioeconomics of where you are. What matters is the engagement. And there's no threat at all. This is just asking industry to come into a meeting, and Zoom is awesome for people that work. They don't have to get in the car and drive across town. You can have those people that are there and have that person in Zoom because they can't come. And it's 15 minutes, an hour of their day. They'd be more than glad to do it. So to me, we have to use that money because we're building those jobs for people to stay in California. We want our kids in Orange County to be able to stay in Orange County and be able to earn a living. And the only way that's happening is through applied learning. And the only thing that does applied learning is CTE. So to me, it doesn't matter what field you're in. It matters that you find out where the passion is of your kids. They know more than, you got to start interviewing them and sending out Google forms and find out what they're interested in and promote your programs and get their parents and industry together. And it'll grow. I promise you, I'll prove it. It's happened. 900 kids now. And when I offered this parent came up to me and said, Mrs. Younglove, why would you be teaching how to drive a train here? And I thought, my God, the community doesn't even know what an engineer is. I mean, it was out, but it was an amazing experience for me. It was an epiphany for me, But our second language learners, our EL students, our Latinos, our Latinas, they knew immediately what engineers were. They knew they were builders and makers and creators. And they were lined up all the way out in the street to sign their kids up for that class. So I learned a big thing. And I think a lot of us have a lot to learn right now, and I don't want anybody in here to walk away and think, I can't do it. I work for Newport Mesa, my last name is Younglove. Can you forget it? The guy in the back there, 46 years I've been married to him, he gave me that name. Younglove, Newport Mesa, you call me, I'll help you. I will help you write a grant, I'll do whatever I can. I'm so passionate about it, to change this, honestly.
And I think the great thing about, I don't want to say this groundswell that's happened, but the demand that it's put on not only teachers, but also industry partners, is that it forced us to create these accessible resources. Many of us, like at the beginning of it, Carson and folks like me were like, okay, let's take a little breather, but also we were tasked with a lot of other weird tasks to navigate through this time. But what we were really able to do when we came together is see how accessible we are, how accessible can we make our resources, and those, I think, are not stopping. Those are going, as our technologies advance, so will our educational resources, because not only does it benefit, you know, our social impact programs, which are housed in various different parts of our company, but when a company fully invests in this, they see the social impact programs, the investments in our community, and the investments in the next generation of creatives as healthy and successful to the future sustainability of our business. And so we're investing in our educational resources, not just for the professional class, but to make sure that you all have access, because our companies will not thrive if we don't have talent accessible locally.
So true.
And we know that we're in a global economy. All of these resources are available to a lot of different people, and it's a wavering market right now. And so we know that we want to make sure our communities have access. And one thing that we really focus on, and I think within AME, Arts, Media, Entertainment curricula, we have the annual AME Institute. And that is an event for all California AME teachers to come to. And then we really believe in the teach the teacher model.
Yes.
Because we can't be in all these schools. We can't have Zoom calls every single day teaching Atmos for audio production. But what we can do is we can teach you. And we can show you where these resources are, and you can teach the students. And then also you can share the same learning resources that you use to teach yourself. You share those with the students, they might get it even a little bit more quickly too. They'll pick it up real quick. Mm-hmm. So we're really excited that this forced us to make access for, I would say for all, a reality. And we had to get out of our heads. We also had to get out of business practices that kept biases in place. And it's a pretty exciting time.
And I will say that when it comes to grant writing and when it comes to, you know, just legalese in general, it can be very like classist and confusing. So we do hold a quarterly free grant writing workshop for educators if you subscribe to the BRIC newsletter, because it is traditionally gate-kept information.
That's amazing. Cheers to you, that's
No,
fabulous.
Matthew Waney, not me. I have no business teaching that at all, but they can get Matthew Waney's wonderful.
Matthew Waney is one of the teachers we met with this week. He's at the USC Engineering and Media Magnet in South LA. So 2015 National Magnet Teacher of the Year. So that's kind of a rock star. I think also too what to me is challenging right now is, and why I'm so excited about what you guys are talking about with the CTE and the AME stuff, is that I'll give you a prime example. My wife cut a movie this year for Warner Brothers. Of her editorial team, she was the only one of them who was raised in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And there were over a dozen editors who touched that film, right? So, and I myself am a product of the LAUSD, which raised me and did its best to, you know, get me through the challenges of growing up in Northeast Los Angeles. And they had great coffee cake, by the way. But it really did. It's solid. Still the best.
Like California.
No, the LAUSD coffee cake is like solid. It really is. Like people just talk about it but not like I'm talking about it. But it's like we just didn't get to do anything or go anywhere or learn anything about show business, and show business was right there. Yep. I mean, it was literally right there. And so one of the joys of my life was getting a call from Thomas Starr King Middle School, where I attended, and being told that they had an animation program, and would I come down and talk to them about it. and then eventually, pre-COVID, bringing their students by once a year for best field trip ever. And that was, you know, a little weird sitting in the principal's office again. That wasn't cool. Brought back some memories. But, you know, the idea of, like, I mean, it's asinine and it's criminal that we are this city of creative professionals and we don't prepare our kids to work in the industry that drives this community. It's like I live in Atwater Village. I grew up in Northeast LA. Everyone around me is from somewhere else. Like if I see another Chicago Cubs hat or Red Sox hat, like no offense, I know, but come on, man. And it's just that thing of like everyone gets priced out of their neighborhoods because they don't have the jobs to be able to stay there.
Right.
And that gets into
You're
another conversation, right? But
Right.
it's the idea of like, I mean, if you can go to Los Angeles High School and then somehow find your way into a grip program or an electric program at a studio or figure out that you can work at the prop warehouse, I mean, those are real jobs. And I know you have a question about parents, and that's the thing to parents too, is like, these are real jobs. Like to get a job drawing cartoons as a board artist, you're making $130K a year, but you also have a pension, which somebody pays into. You also have, you know, health and welfare, so that's incredible. So, you know, you have this thing called benefits. That's kind of cool.
And you get to do what you love.
What's that?
And you get to do what you love.
Yeah, and you get to draw for a living. I mean, come on. You get to, like, play video games and eat cereal. And if you want to dress up weird one day, no one cares. It's just like, dude dressed as a pirate. I'm like, yeah, it's just his jam.
That's a real person.
That is a real dude. Yeah, he runs our auto recording facilities. But so I think that's the thing, like, and I don't mean to attack anyone for that. I'm just saying that's the reality of, like, there are so many kids. There's 750,000 kids in the LAUSD, and how many of them know that there are these wonderful jobs that they can get without ever going to college? If college is not their path. If college is their path, that's wonderful. But, you know, there's all these studios, there's all these films and all these commercials being made here. And, like, it's, why are the, not the Greyhound anymore, but why are all these people flying in from some other place to move here and figure that out? That's something we really need to address in this town.
Well, and there's tens of thousands of homes in South LA that don't have internet.
There's that, yeah.
So,
Yeah, there
just
is.
saying,
In
yeah.
Orange County, too.
But yeah, so it's very odd, the divide that occurs here. But that's what we're trying to fix.
Yeah, try and fix it.
And we'd like to actually turn it over to you now, to all the educators that raise their hands, and anyone else has any questions for this panel. Wealth of information, fountain of knowledge here. Go ahead.
I come from the opposite end. I'm not CTV. I teach animation anyway. Because I've been teaching for 20 years before they had it.
Mhm.
So, and I can't get a CTV credential. So about the grants, do they offer the grants even though if they're CTV? Those guys can't do that.
Do you have an industrial arts certification?
They have it in our school.
Do you have an industrial arts? No.
This pure art.
You're just an art teacher. Unfortunately, the funding goes with career technical education. They do allow industrial arts, which people used to have as a certification before the CT came out. I want to tell you that you could. You just have to work with your county on the hours. The amount of hours that you put in your classroom teaching, and probably extra hours that you put in projects and things that are going on over all of these years, you probably would qualify. And right now, there are grants in school districts that are helping teachers pay that $1,200 for that certification. Believe me, you'll fly through it. It's a 6-month class, and you're going to get it done in probably 6 weeks because of your knowledge base. But it's the hours that you need to be able to do it. So I would tell you that it's worth your time to go to your county and find out, because they generally are the ones that handle the certifications, and interview with them and see whether you can qualify to do it. And then if you can, it's a simple thing of taking this 6-month class. They'll tell you how to do it. It does cost $1,200. Actually, I think LA does it for $1,000. They gouge us for $1,200. But either way around it, it gives you access to those funds. And the state came out hard on this credential, and now they realize that the hours that they set for it were ridiculous. Ridiculous for a teacher to try to pick up 2,000 hours of working experience. So I think in time that's going to change, but it's worth you right now to start looking at it, because this next level of grant has just come out, and there's a lot of money. There's a lot of money, $650 million in this round, and they're going to keep doing it. It's not because of Newsom and it's not because of Brown, it's because of industry. Industry has people like me, they call it the silver tsunami, people that are getting older and there's no young people coming in. And they realize this is where the area is, so the state will continually fund this. So I think it's important for you to check it out if you can. And then if there isn't, you should be talking to them about an option if you could do a hybrid type of environment where you teach 3 days a week and you bring an industry person in 2 days a week. And that industry person's fulfilling the hours. You have to check that out with your county. It's not everywhere, but they're trying to be very flexible.
What district are you? Riverside?
Well, for the unified Riverside area.
Do you work with Mount Sac Community College?
Riverside Community College.
Mount, can I give you my email? Yeah.
She might be able to help you.
Kind of what she does.
Okay, there are any other questions? There we go.
So I live and work in a rural community. I struggle to come up with work-based learning opportunities, internship programs, mentorship programs. Do you guys have any advice as to how to develop that for a small area?
You go, yeah. I just, really quick, I have a virtual internship program. I'd love for your, do you have animation kids or virtual development kids or what?
Animation, yeah.
Please follow Brick Foundation. We open it up, it's virtual and we'll stay virtual always.
Cool.
I think
Where do you
there's-
teach?
TV, video, digital media, animation.
Where about?
Lake Arrowhead.
Okay, so you're up in Lake Arrowhead. I mean,
Beautiful.
yes, I mean, you do have that. You got clean air. I
Healthy.
mean, that's cool. Clean air is good. I also think that this is a non-traditional approach, but that's kind of my jam. Figure out if there's anybody who went to your high school who works in show business,
Right.
and just hit them up and just say,
I
hey,
do.
okay, good, all right, good.
Yeah.
That's step one, because guilt works amazingly well. Just send pictures of children who want to learn. And that's I think one step two. And then just all the resources are out there. We have animation. I know one at Nick. When the pandemic started, I was just sending out every animation resource, everything to everybody. I was like, this is not the time to be tribal, nor I think we have the luxury of being tribal at all. So I would send out Khan Academy, Netflix, Disney, whatever it was, just to get out there. And I also just keep paying attention, because as we continue on, these virtual mentorship opportunities are just going to happen more and more and more and more and more.
And I do think to Nicole's point, there's the physical kind of requirement, the state requirement for these experiences, and sorry, not physical, but like the structural requirement for them, which Brick is amazing for. And then I think to Carson's point and everything we've been talking about, reach out to any of the corporate sponsors at the bottom of this whole conference's list. We all have educational resources. So if you want something for advanced audio production, for post, or for music, or for, I don't know, just any video games, we have resources for that. Like, all of us have these educational resources, and I think the hard part for us, but this is why we're working together, is how do we get those all in one spot and then distribute it out to you. So that's why we have the AME Institute.
In June, please come.
In June, and then we're also gonna have some pop-ups.
perfect.
Perfect. So yeah, it's like we wanna make sure that you get this fostering and this education year over year from industry, so we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But all the virtual resources are there, and then it's only gonna build.
I'd also recommend you to go to your local community college and find out whether they actually have a pathway in this.
Yeah, I'm working on articulation.
So, well, not even just the articulation, get your kids on that campus.
Yeah.
Get them in and out of there and get that professor or teacher over to your campus. Now, they may be more antiquated than you, so be choosy here. But it'd be a great idea to be able to, if you can contact one of these companies that are presenting and ask them if they could send someone and connect with the community college at the same time. So have the community college and you together. That combining of those students is extraordinarily powerful. So, and it's a bigger draw to the industry because they're getting a broader spectrum of ages. So they're being able to see the continuum in that area that you're living in. So I try to work with them, and if they don't have an advisory, they should. And that would be the first place I go, is I combine my advisories together and bring a speaker in for all of you. And that would help you a lot.
Yeah, I think also too, reach out to studios. Just be annoying. I mean, in a obviously a non-annoying way, but be persistent is a better word. But get out there, and because we do so much virtual work, there might be an opportunity where we have an artist who lives not too far from you. It might be, it might not be, but it can't hurt to say, hey, look, we chatted. I was wearing a mask, but we chatted at this event, and our email is nice@nick.com, so it's pretty easy. It might take us a while to get back to you, like a week or so, because we're pretty slammed right now. But who knows? I mean, it could just be, hey, how's it going? Or it could be, oh, by the way, I just talked to so and so. Because it's fascinating how often we'll have a conversation, myself and Darren will be talking, and then we'll say, oh, but so and so actually grew up, there. Oh, well, let's go ahead and hit them up and see if they want to talk to some kids about this. Mm-hmm. And it's something as organic as that. Right, and it's not, I feel bad because it's not, we can't partner with every single school in the world as much as we would like to, because every kid is deserving, and talent exists all over this planet. It doesn't, there's not more talent in West LA than there is in South LA or in El Paso or wherever you are. Kids are kids are smart, kids have access to media, right? They have dreams, they have ideas, all these things. But if it's just us tossing somebody into a room and saying, hey, look, at least that's something that we can do, and maybe get that child a little bit closer to understanding, okay, this is the path. And also, too, the sad reality is that you could say 100% the exact same thing as a visitor from Nickelodeon, but because they work at Nickelodeon,
Yep.
It's gospel. It's from the mountaintop, right? Exactly, word for word.
Yeah, it's true.
I would like to do that as an experiment, actually.
Yeah, it's true.
Just record both of them. And so that's something as well. So I just, think about that, but just be scrappy, hustle, do all those things.
Yeah, get your kids out, too. You've got a
Yeah.
lot of resorts in that town, and all around you with Big Bear. Get out there and get your kids doing presentations when there are things going on. If you've got some big Oktoberfest, I mean, you got everybody from all over that come in.
Yeah.
Set up a booth outside and have your kids showing some of the stuff that they're doing. Ask for them to support it. That's what I do. Prostituting children. No. Look at these guys. No, but I let my kids. No. And could you erase that now? No. The reality of it is letting your kids get out and let them talk about the passion that they have, let their cameras run, interview people, do things like that, and the word gets out. That's how people want to help you, because they didn't even know it existed at your high school. Yeah. And now they want a piece of it. So
And
it's really
Carson,
important.
too, has made a living off just introducing people to other people, and things happen.
It's true.
I have no other skills.
I have no other
Way
skills.
too humble.
Let's be frank.
And I don't think it's a secret. I think we're just bad at PR, but we're about to start a series that's going to be in every teacher's classroom starting in November. Once a month, the VES Society, Women in Animation and Concept Art Association are doing a speaker series that will be 2 p.m. I believe it's a Thursday, but it'll be live Q&A, so kids are able to ask questions directly too. So stay tuned for that email. Please subscribe to AME's Institutes.
Yeah, very cool. Good call.
So you can't partner with every school in the world, but you can partner with a high school in South Carolina.
Email me.
Bring it. Let's do it.
Oh, and my pen's broken, but just Nicole@brickfoundation.org. I don't have business cards. Nicole, Nicole, at brick.foundation.org.
We did do the art fields thing this year and last year, and so that's in Lake City, South Carolina, where we dropped artists in the classrooms virtually and drew with students. My favorite one was we had a character design class, and one kid showed up. For some reason, one kid showed up and one artist, and the nonprofit was just like, oh. And it was the greatest hour and 15 minutes of these two people's lives, because they loved all the same things, even they were separated by 25 years, and they made these things together. So that's also a great resource too, is Art Fields, which is in Lake City, which is run by Carla Angus, and it's a rural community. They do this great art festival. It's in April, I think. It's in April. But that might be something to investigate as well out there. Yeah.
And Animation 101 on Nick's channel, I prescribe like Tylenol, so it's really, really great.
I think Peter over there built part of that, so
Really?
thank him
Oh,
for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, that was Peter's work.
Yes, it's K-16 and K-12 strong workforce, and the K-16 now goes through community college. Yes, there's a big push right now by the state to get career technical education into elementary, so that there's a continuum.
Yeah, and a lot of us were at the California STEM conference just a few weeks ago. So we're really trying to understand, I think from the industry side, it varies industry and company to company, because sometimes we could teach advanced audio production. It doesn't mean it's necessarily age appropriate, or the technologies are available, but we will work with you to make sure that whatever fundamentals you want to bring into your classroom, if it's the right match for your curriculum, that we can integrate them in a most appropriate way.
Where's your school? Okay. Good for you. Yeah.
I have a grant. I'm working with your school district.
I was
I
gonna
don't know how
say.
to talk to elementary kids, but I really want to. So I'm trying to manifest a different org that knows how to do that. But we were working with your high school and your middle school. I just haven't figured out elementary yet.
Yeah, they've got a strong engineering program in Hawthorne also, I think. I think you do Project Lead the Way Gateway, which is the elementary, so you already have CTE there.
Hatha's in charge. She's wonderful.
We do. That's why we started Let's Draw, was because it was the idea of, we had this really sort of, really odd habit in this country of telling kids when they're young just to draw because we want them to be quiet because we're at dinner, right? And there's that idea of like just draw, and then they become 12 and we tell them to stop drawing and become adults.
Yes.
And it's sort of like, well, hold on,
Stop
this doesn't
doodling.
make any sense to me. And so that's why we started Let's Draw, which is honestly just, it's shape language. It's if you can draw, 3 shapes, you can pretty much draw anything, right? And so Nickelodeon has these how to draw videos. We do Let's Draw. There's also something called the Nick Schools Partnership Program. I got it, thank you. I'm bad with acronyms. And it's a nationwide program that works with elementary schools across the country in a series of things. So check that out as well, and you can shoot us an email and we'll look into it. We don't run that personally, our partners do, but there could be something there as well.
I have a lot of students that have physical learning disabilities and also autism that have amazing
Art skills.
capabilities.
Yeah,
Of course,
it's
yeah.
incredible. It's so cool. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Amazing pictures, we get to know how to utilize them and use them in that direction. Because sometimes
Get the tablet over
in
there.
language arts and the math
Autistic kids is
they're solid with the math,
Mhm.
but language arts is that
Get to work.
they struggle, but
Sure.
the capabilities are there. Then, I've had several, I've had parents with amazing abilities, but it would be good to know where the, schools are.
Do you know about Exceptional Minds?
I just got a pamphlet out from the other day about.
They're doing the best work. They work on every Marvel movie, and it's a career pathway for autistic kids interested in art. So I really, really recommend. And I don't think they do early. I know they have a high school program, but
We have to figure out who
somebody needs to come out.
at that younger level who because it is, because I think and this is a different conversation, but there's an idea in other parts of the world that children who fall under the spectrum are uniquely abled, and that's one of the things I think that is is sort of misunderstood in this country.
Yes.
Because if you take somebody who can sit in front of a screen for 12 hours and rotoscope something out, or the Exceptional Minds nonprofit also has a working studio, and so you have people who sit in spaces and spend hours upon hours upon hours on computers fixing things, right? I can't sit still for more than 8 minutes.
I've been dancing the whole time.
This is torture up here. It's just like, I want to go.
But that's who we need in post-production.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
need somebody to
Totally.
sit there and watch a movie and debug every single little detail that's bothering them when they're watching it, or that they're like, that needs to be fixed time and time again throughout the whole movie. We need somebody to be able to sit there in a studio
Yep.
and tinker. And I think we do have a social misconception, And I think,
Big time.
I mean, in a massive way. And I think, again, this is where, from the whole pipeline, if we as industry understand and see the success of neurodiverse individuals
Right.
and diversity on a whole, and then we're influencing at this educational level, and then some organizations, some companies are influencing on the governmental level and really putting their money into advocacy as well. That's always a little bit, that's a specific organizational choice. But then also working in these community partnerships, we will get to that. I fully believe it, but we're planting the seeds, we're watering them as much as possible, so.
And you couldn't be in a better position working with special education right now, because the state of California is pushing heavily on us being inclusive in all that we're doing in CTE for all levels. And it's important. I'm not saying it's something that it is something we should be doing, but they're now starting to measure it, which is really important. Because a lot of people get their statistics, oh, I've hit my 30%, I'm okay, I don't need to do any more, and they walk away from it. And now the state's waking up a little bit and saying, okay, where is there an advantage in a student being able to succeed? And you're a great example of that. So don't forget that. That's an asset, an absolute asset.
Okay, do we have any more questions?
We scared them.
Scared him.
And, I mean, I think the final thing that is really, by all means, reach out to every single one of us.
Oh, yeah.
We have so many different resources, and like I said, sometimes the challenge is us finding you.
Right.
And we don't know, what you need, and we don't always know what we need to hear from. And so I think listening is a huge thing that has come, the forced listening and the forced slowing down that came in the pandemic, I think is really powerful. And the desire for connection, I think, will absolutely remain, because we know that we're stronger together in doing this work. So please reach out to every single one of us. I think I'm most accessible on LinkedIn, Simone Price, Dolby Laboratories. Nicole shared her email. But yeah, please reach out to all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't forget that CTE is the reason a lot of your kids that are teachers in here come to school.
Yeah.
It's your class is the reason they're coming to school. Otherwise, they go elsewhere.
And thanks
So-
to the grants with CTE, that
Yeah.
there are animation labs now, and I myself has been a part of putting over 52 different pathways in Los Angeles Unified School District, thanks to the CTE grants. And now we have students coming into these schools that are literally going into their classrooms and have professional products that they're using at Nickelodeon, that they're using at Disney, and they're
really
using the
important.
same software, and they're ready to go to work at these studios when they graduate from these pathways. So
Really
it's
true.
something to look into and make sure, like the Brick Foundation, get help with the grants, reach out to people, connect people. And I want to thank everyone here so much for your time and your expertise. You just really just made everything a lot lighter for everyone, I think.
Thank
I
you,
got
Nathan.
I got a request also too. And I know this is difficult and this is extra work on, but if you can find ways in your districts to highlight the work done by your students, if you can just have something as simple as like, hey, we're doing an animation festival, and even if it's just like in somebody's living room, or garage or at the school or whatever, and get a link and send it out to studios. There's so much need right now. Our recruiters are over there just like talking to every single person who walks by. There's so many jobs to fill. There's so much work going on, because you think about it, every Marvel movie you've seen is an animated movie. Almost every movie you watch is an animated movie at the end of the day, right? Pretty much, right? And so, but if you can find a way to do that, to highlight your students' work, and I know it's extra work for you guys, and you already work a lot, but if there's a way that you can get that work in front of other people, they will discover it and say, hey, look.
One of the ways I recommend to do that is you've all got a local restaurant in your towns, no matter how big or small, where a lot of your families go. And one of the things to do is to supply that restaurant with 4 empty frames or 6 empty frames to hang on the wall, and the best of your student work goes there once a week, and you change it out. And when the parents come in, they're like, oh, And grandma and everybody comes in and they see all the artwork up and they're like, holy smokes, what are these kids doing? So think about your community. That gets people into their store. Wouldn't they love to put these artwork up because the family comes and the school comes? Think about that as a way of being able, they're running video feeds. When the football games aren't running, you could be running one of your animated films that your kids have done. Think wisely about your community because that's where those people are going to see it. It's exactly what Carson's saying. And it's a win-win for you too as a teacher. You need accolades everywhere you go.
Sorry for adding extra work to your plate.
And for that, shall we applaud the teachers and the people who came and sat here and listened to us? Thanks for listening.
Cheers, folks. You guys all have a good day.
Yeah. Stay dry.
Yeah.
And we're over 5.